Hello, everyone. Welcome to iCritic Live. This is the podcast where we talk about entertainment, pop culture, life in between, and in one case, this one, business, which we've been talking about business a lot about this on this podcast. I'm your host, Kevin T. Rodriguez, film critic of iCritic.net, and I am joined today with Justin Sevakis, the CEO of Media OCD, founder of Anime News Network, current owner of Animego, which I have finally figured out how to pronounce correctly. So say hi, Justin.
Hey everyone.
So normally I do like a big lead up to the guest introduction, but I wanted to have him on because we have to get a couple things down. First of all, if you've noticed that I don't have, if you are watching this live instead of listening to it on the podcast, I'm not wearing my costume because we are in Southern California and there is I'm not going to say a heat wave, but an unusual amount of humidity this week. So
It's pretty hot too. It's
yeah,
pretty gross.
yeah, it doesn't feel. Basically, days like today are where you almost want to go to Mother Nature and act as if you can negotiate with her and say, "Why am I spending all this money to be in California if the weather's not even going to be nice?" But
I will say this, I just got back from New York City and it's still way worse there. Like,
okay,
it is so much worse. So
well, that's
we're
good to know.
spoiled. We're spoiled rotten.
Right. So I am doing this on my surface in the kitchen. I do not know if roommates will come in. I am near a four-stop light, and I've got dogs in the room, which may or may not bark at any time. So this is the fun part about it being live, folks. And that's explaining this. And I also want to open this episode by stating something. Personal opinion, of course. This is not the opinion of Justin. This is just me. As much as I love many of the people who work at Crunchyroll, and while I love the Crunchyroll service, I have been increasingly disturbed by how big they've grown to the point where I think they're virtually an anime monopoly. And I always knew that something would happen once they got that much power that would really rub me the wrong way. Many things have, but this was kind of my breaking point where I decided to reach out to the CEO of a company and say, "Hey, do you want to come on and talk about this?" I think my biggest problem was when they bought Right Stuf International. I loved Right Stuf International. I loved their deals. I loved their service. I loved how they packaged things. When there was an issue with a pre-order, former owner Sean, he actually reached out to me personally. I love that site. Once Crunchyroll bought it, I knew something would change because at this point, Crunchyroll is now releasing the anime. They own the streaming distribution, and they have the channel to release the product. Do not like that combination under any circumstance, but on the other hand, they did take down the Paramount degree, so maybe it's not illegal. That's controlling all facets of this. Well, earlier this year, they did something drastic where they said, "Hey, we're going to now put the Crunchyroll store, as it's now named, behind a paywall," which I know that this was not technically speaking your tweet, but I love the little bit of shade. "We'll sell you the anime we want. We even have generous rewards points for discounts on future orders. No membership fees required to buy because that would be crazy." And yes, aside from like comic conventions where obviously admittance is necessary, putting merchandise behind a paywall, I think is equally crazy. And I really thought that was going to be the most extreme thing they did because it's like, okay, you've got the merchandise, you've got the exclusives, and now you're going to put just the ability to buy it behind a paywall. It's like, that was already a worst case scenario for me. But then they did something way more drastic than I had even anticipated. They removed a lot of their physical media. They removed manga, light novels, a vast majority of the physical discs that they have that they did not make. If they didn't make it, they're still selling some of the inventory to get rid of it, but there's no more returns on it. Can't return it. And they're basically using the anime store as a way to, in my opinion, force out the competition and push people towards their own products, and they're still charging you a fee for the privilege of doing so. So I admit that I'm not going to get on a high horse and say I'm going to boycott Crunchyroll because they're the biggest anime company in the world. I'm kind of stuck with them to a certain extent, but I do not like this. I think this is very anti-consumer. But is it as bad as I really think it is? That's one of the reasons we have Justin here. So, Justin, um, I'm going to start with one question. What was your initial reaction when you heard that, before we even found out that stuff like yours was going to be taken off the store? What was your initial reaction when you found out that this was all going to be behind a paywall?
Well, if I could kind of correct your timeline a little bit here.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Before any of this was made public or announced or anything like that, I mean, for the better part of like 6 months, maybe even more, we noticed that a lot of both Discotek and Animego titles were just not getting stocked. They would just delist them if they ran out, and they just wouldn't bother restocking them. And, you know, that wasn't as big of a deal for Animego titles because A, we had our own storefront, and B, we also distribute through a wholesaler called MVD, so like Diabolic could get it, Amazon could get it, not a big deal. Discotek does not have a distributor. Discotek only sells direct to Crunchyroll, or at the time only to Crunchyroll and to Amazon. So since Amazon was also kind of fumbling restocking a lot of their classic Discotek titles, a lot of stuff just seemed like it was out of print when it wasn't, but neither storefront was stocking it, so it was effectively unobtainable. So once we realized that this was becoming like a real problem, and fans were coming to us in a panic, is this out of print? It's such and such out of print. That's when we started going as fast as we could, scaling up the Media OCD store and stocking them on our own site. And then just the fact that we were able to have those, and we had logistics capabilities and all that, that was like a big crazy rush for us, that we were just able to just get all of that going. And that website I had thrown together in a weekend on Wix.com. Like, it was not a robust website for e-commerce. So like I had to hire full-time our new e-commerce guy, Steven. And we basically took a month to completely rebuild the site on something a little more robust and scalable. We're pretty happy with the result, but that was 6 months ago when we were worried about something like this happening. And the worst part for me was that Crunchyroll store didn't tell any of their vendors what was happening. We found out when the general public found out, and that I find pretty not cool. But it is what it is. We adjusted, and honestly, having a storefront has been really, really great for us. It's allowed us a much more direct line with the general public and with the customers. And there is money to be made as a retailer. I'm not going to lie; it's been a huge windfall for us. But in terms of the institution of Right Stuf, that had been the number one anime retailer for 30 plus years, just kind of going away like that, it's really sad. And as a fan, I don't love how any of this shook out. I don't. And I do have a lot of problems with a lot of it, but we adjust, and the fans are awesome. They know where to go. They know where to find the good stuff, and now it's just about rebuilding habits.
All right, I remember, and I couldn't find the exact live stream, but it was shortly after Crunchyroll announced that they were buying Right Stuf, and you were doing like a live stream with announcements, and you actually mentioned Crunchyroll like in something along the line of like, so I know everyone's wondering about the Crunchyroll thing, but it seems like they're talking to us. It seems like it's going to be a good partnership. It seems like it's going to work out, and apparently didn't quite work out the way that anyone had wanted, especially if they're not talking to you about this.
Yeah, I mean, we asked multiple times, hey, what's happening? Is there some way we can work out a plan, or you can at least tell us what's happening. And the people, like, to their credit, they returned our emails, but they're just like, sorry, I'm not allowed to say. So that it's just it. That
I want them to respond to the email. Is that more frustrating than not getting a response?
Well, look, it really doesn't make a difference at the end of the day. We adjusted the best we could. It would have been nice to get a heads up, but if they had decided, hey, the store isn't really working out in its current form, we're going to reinvent as like a monthly, merch drop thing, which is what they ended up doing. They could have given us a heads up, and but it was a huge stressor and huge pain in the butt, and it's really not cool from a business perspective. It was really not something that I would expect from a large trusted company like that. But it's also showbiz, and you roll with the punches.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a saying that I do bring up when people don't like what business are doing. I'm like, guys, the saying in town is it ain't show friends, it's show business. And things like this.
I don't fully buy into that. And you can probably tell from the way I run my company.
You run your company very well from everything that I know about it.
Well, thank you. I don't always agree, but I'll take it. The thing is, Crunchyroll has a lot of fans working there, but the upper management is mostly like seasoned showbiz people. And I really wonder sometimes if they understand how anime has always worked in this country, where it's always been this very kind of grassroots, very fan-oriented thing where, there was a lot of communication and cooperation between the consumer and the studio. If you're from the Hollywood system, that seems like an anathema, I would think. Hollywood has always held the consumer at arm's length. It's been like that since the 1920s, and often for good reason. But I don't think, and from their point of view, with anime being more mainstream than it ever has, and potentially like the future of show business in some regards, they probably don't think that's a sustainable way to conduct business. I don't know. It's a difference of opinion. It's a difference of how to fundamentally run a media company. It's not how I like to do things, but also I'm, they're orders of magnitude bigger than I am, and make orders of magnitude more revenue than I do, and have giant IP like Dragon Ball and Cowboy Bebop. So,
Yeah. No, Animego does have more, I'm going to say, specialized titles, but
niche. It's niche titles.
Yeah. Well, I like the term specialized because most of them are really good, so they are special.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to think we curate pretty well. Not everything we release is a 10 out of 10 banger, but we think there's something special about pretty much all of them.
Well, look, you haven't made MD Geist part of your lineup yet, so I'm still. That's a positive. We don't need that.
People ask for us for that constantly.
You ever tell them
I personally don't get it.
Ever tell them, like, do you realize how many times I had to work on that title? I don't want to work on it anymore.
Well, look, if I got the opportunity to do an HD remaster of that, I probably would do it just for old time's sake.
Okay, and hopefully that would be the last time you'd have to do that.
Well, look, I've worked on way worse things than MD Geist. Here, let's be honest here.
I've probably seen worse myself, but I just never got over the fact that MD Geist was like one of the first anime that I rented from Blockbuster. I paid my own money for it, and it was like that. I want my money back.
You'll never get that $3 back. I'm sorry.
No, well, I know I'll never get that $3 back, but it was just like, wow, that was really, truly terrible. That was the first bad anime that I registered as being bad, I should say. And so, but eh, anyway, so all right, so you kind of answered my second question. You were kind of getting some indications that something was going on because Crunchyroll, they're not buying stuff. It's really hurting
Huge
discotheque.
chunks of our catalog were just falling off the site with no explanation and no communication.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a bad sign. And then you have, girl, come here. And then you and then you have. Hold on, folks. It's live. Let me just. Uh, this is what happened. You know. So for the record, folks, pugs are wonderful dogs, but they are narcissistic, and when you don't pay attention to them for very long, they get impatient with you. So anyway, so the huge chunks are falling off, and then it's really hurting discotheque because they don't have the distributions that Animago and Media OCD
Yep.
has.
Yeah.
So
Luckily, we had the web store, and we had a really great fulfillment center in Alabama we work with that was ready to scale with us. So we just decided to just take on the whole discotheque catalog, and we're almost done. Like we have maybe 20 discs left to add, and then we have everything that is in currently in print from discotheque in the store. And then we've been adding stuff from Sentai. We are our new goal, if you know, because it seems like no one else is stepping up and just trying to be what Right Stuf and what everyone had with Crunchyroll store initially. Seems like no one wants to be in that business. Well, we'll be in that business. We're happy to do it, but it's going to take some time to just get everything because we're talking a lot of stuff that they used to have.
right. No, no, I agree, and I'm sure Right Stuf didn't get built overnight. They got their catalog and their distribution over years
Well,
of acquiring things.
you have to remember they started with the rest of the industry back in the early 90s. They were originally a telescope a telescope company, and they got the rights to Astro Boy around the same time as you know, Central Park Media and US Renditions and everyone were starting to come online. And they're just like, they just started, you know, selling everyone else's stuff just because there wasn't that much of it. And as the industry grew, so too did they. And it worked really well for everybody. And they were, you know, as much backbiting and dumbass nerd competition there was in the anime space in the early days, and you know, well into the Funimation and ADV era. They managed to stay Switzerland, and I think that's a pretty great thing to be. You know, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'll take that mantle.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, especially since you and I come from, you know, a much smaller time when the anime industry was not as big in America as it used to be. I even got those Right Stuf catalogs in the
Ah,
mail.
yes, the best day of the year.
Yeah, yep, and I mean, people will never some people won't understand the joy of just flipping through the pages and basically window shopping through this catalog, all the stuff that you didn't have the money to buy, and then you know there was that section in the back that was taped off that my parents would always like rip out before they would let me have.
As for the best, you didn't want any of that stuff.
I'm probably you're probably correct on that one. So I remember those days, and oh boy, it broke my heart a little when Right Stuf was sold. Like I said, I knew that something would happen. Them removing the adult stuff right away was not a surprise by any
Well, I will say this. You know, it is a different era. That happened 4 or 5 years ago now,
right.
and it's a very different era. I don't think if I am rebuilding, you know, Right Stuff from scratch today, I don't think you can carry hentai. I don't think you can carry adult stuff. It's just too hard with the credit card processing. You would literally have to set up a different storefront for it.
Oh, yeah, because the credit card companies, they have rules about selling that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
right?
It's just a lot harder. I mean, you can still kind of slip under the radar and you can make a small business out of it, but you don't want to, jeopardize your whole operation, because let's face it, if Stripe pulled my credit card account tomorrow, I would be so screwed. In fact, this happened earlier in the year because I was using Wix's built-in credit card processing, and they just, during a weekend where I put up new pre-orders, they just decided, no more credit card processing. We're not sure about you. We need to ask some things. But they did that on a Friday afternoon.
Oh gosh.
And I'm just like, this was a $30,000 weekend. What is wrong with you? So yeah, I quickly rolled up with Stripe, and I was just like, that was the beginning of the end for me on Wix. But they, I mean, can you imagine that happening when you're, a multi-million-dollar operation? You'd be screwed.
That's true. That's true. There was some in Japan manga site that was selling all this old manga digitally, but because there was some like adult material on there, they ran into issues with credit
Yeah.
card companies. So, and the other reason you wouldn't want to like sell the stuff is I don't even know if there's as big of a market for it, because now you have websites where you can watch, for lack of a better word, the good scenes on loop, and you don't need to buy DVDs and get through the inconvenient story and things like that.
Well, some people do want the whole package, and some people do want it. I get that. You know, there are definitely a few hentai titles that I would consider art, but overall, I don't think that I personally don't think I could build a sustainable business with it, nor do I really want to, honestly. I have nothing against adult content, but I did that when I was in college, and I'm kind of done with it.
Yeah.
That chunk of my soul has never grown back.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So I'm glad that everyone was able to get the Wix store together.
Yeah, we're not on Wix anymore. Now we're on we have a self-hosted WooCommerce site, which way more robust, way more extensible. We can do a lot of cool things with it. Yeah, we're pretty happy with it.
Oh, okay. So that's the interesting thing, or the missing piece of the puzzle, I should say, because I was wondering, did Crunchyroll actually communicate any of this? Because there was one thing that I had noticed a lack of on X, Meta, and Blue Sky, was there weren't a lot of CEOs of anime companies come out and saying, like, we are completely blindsided by what Crunchyroll is doing. Like, I mean, they clearly didn't communicate it with you, but they were kind of subtly letting you know in other ways that.
Yeah, that's the thing. And nobody was really blindsided by this because it was like a slow creep, even though they didn't really communicate their plans to us. So everyone had time to adjust. So it really nobody went out of business as a result of this.
Right. Which thank goodness, because the last thing we need is for you or Sentai to go out of business, or at the very least make so little money that you put yourself up to sale to Crunchyroll.
Well, yeah, I don't think anyone currently in the business is particularly interested in being bought out by Crunchyroll at this point that I know of. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think the sort of stuff that we do is just simply not what Crunchyroll wants to be a part of. And I'm happy to take that. And, if they don't think that this section of the business suits them, I'm not in a position to argue.
Right. Well, that's not to blow smoke up your butt, but I'm glad that you put things like Search for the Full Moon on Blu-ray. I think we might have actually talked a little bit about that off camera last time we spoke. Stop it. I've got bugs. Why did I get a pug?
They're a little needy. They're a little needy.
They are a little needy. What can I say? People who are listening to this, you're missing quite a show. This is me trying For you watching, this is me trying to be professional while I'm trying to keep this animal from barking. She
It
also,
is currently like climbing on him and licking his face while on camera. This is delightful. I'm enjoying this.
yeah, yeah, she is the definition of a snuggle pug. But I also heard that you rescued the Dog of Flanders license, which I did have that on DVD from Pioneer. Was always disappointed that it didn't have the subtitled edition. That's going to have both versions on it, right?
It is. We just got the 4K scan of it. The the Japanese producer Nippon Animation is happy to let us recut the English version, which by the way was edited down. I don't know if you knew that.
I knew that. That's I
It was
mean,
pretty clumsily done. You could tell.
yeah, because way back then, I mean, I watched. Well, the fact that there was no Japanese track, that was
A giveaway.
that was a giveaway. Here's an interesting story when I bought. Maybe you could appreciate this. So I've actually bought Dog of Flanders on DVD at an Albertsons, and it was a blind buy because it came with a minor soundtrack release, which was
I'm sorry. Albertsons, the grocery store.
Albertsons, the grocery store.
What the hell?
Yeah, they were selling the Dog of Flanders on DVD with an anime with a soundtrack of the movie inside of it. Interestingly, the soundtrack was kind of what made me pull the trigger because how often did you get anime soundtracks released back then? And then it was later on I was reading some magazine that I can't remember, and they said, you know, we hate to be the ones who actually say that the VHS version is worth buying over the DVD, but yeah, we recommend buying this on VHS because the DVD is edited. It was like, really?
Well, yeah, but it's got Robert Loggia.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hey, there's nothing wrong with Loggia.
We love Robert Loggia.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and people, for those of you who just know him from the Family Guy joke, he really was a good actor. He even got an Academy Award nomination. Although I'm sensing his career wasn't exactly hopping if he accepted a role voicing Dog of Flanders.
Well, you know, anime or dubbing and voice work for animation in general is it's really easy. It's like two or 3 days worth of work. And you know, if the money makes sense, they'll do it for reasonably low cost. That said, you know, I don't think the dub version is the way to watch that movie.
No.
The subtitle version is awesome and is so good, and I really can't wait to show people in full HD. I'm still undecided as to whether to do a 4K release of it, but I'd like to try.
Well, I'll buy the 4K release if you do that. I'll also buy the Blu-ray release if that's where you decide to go with it. I know that 4K releases can be a little costly.
They are, but you know, if enough people buy it, it's worth it. We're getting our feet wet with what will promise to be a much better seller, which is AD Police.
Oh, AD. Oh, now that's a name I have not heard for a long time.
Well,
Time.
we're about to cut the trailer. That new remaster is so good. I didn't realize, but the old Video Master, the original that was used on all the DVDs and everything, is so dark. There was so much detail that was just crushed into black that it's almost like a whole different experience watching it in the new edition. So I really can't wait for people to see it. It is mind blowing.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to buy that one, but I trust that if there are fans of the show out there, and I know there's fans of the shows. I'm sure you'll do a good job for them.
Oh, not a fan of it?
You know, it has been a long time since I watched it. I might have to give it another shot because that might be one of those shows where I might have been just too young to appreciate it.
It's really dark. It is really dark. Like it makes Bubblegum Crisis look like, you know, the Muppet movie.
Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah, see, I don't even remember much about it, but it was kind of like how the when I was young and I first rented a couple Meisani Koku tapes from Blockbuster and did not care for it, and then years later watched on DVD. It's like, this is one of my favorite shows ever. Whoa, I was an idiot when I was a kid.
I mean, to be fair, you were probably watching them out of sequence. You didn't know, like, you were probably missing huge chunks of the story. It's not the same. You know,
Right.
VHS was not the way to release long serialized shows like that. It just wasn't.
Right. That was much. You could do that for like Ranma half, but where it made
Well,
more.
yeah, Ranma though turned into like fight of the week, and you know,
Right.
it didn't. After like the first 18 or so episodes, where it turned into the second series, it wasn't serialized barely at all.
No, except for the random two-parter episodes that
Exactly.
they would do. So, all right, go on, girl. Stop. Don't bark again. So, what? What? Well, I was just happy that you guys released Naruto. Well, okay. Now, see, this is the problem when you get me into a room with someone who works in the anime industry. I end up talking about anime stuff rather than the topic. so, so, in now, interestingly, because you know, again, Right Stuf used to be the #1 anime store. Obviously, it had have a bit of an impact on discotheque until you help them out. Do you see this decision negatively affecting physical media for anime? We're talking about anime, manga, light novels overall, or do you think it's just going to encourage other places like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, maybe even the published direct to consumer? Do you think they're going to be fine overall without Crunchyroll store?
I think it'll take a while. I think we'll get back to an equilibrium again. It definitely hurts in the short term. That said, you know, they had been less and less important in the space for a while. But you know, the lack of their being there is definitely still felt. Media OCD Store is not, you know, it's growing very fast, but it's not a replacement for Crunchyroll Store yet. We don't have any manga, which is something I'm looking to change. We don't have any vinyl. We don't have any toys. I'm not sure I want to stock toys because, you know, those have kind of stopped selling as much as they used to. But you know, there's a whole lot of things that, you know, we want to do with it it'll just take a really long time, and until that happens, there is no central place to buy everything anime and manga, and we need that. So we're doing our best. We'll get there soon at some point, but maybe not soon. But we'll do our best.
Right. And for those of you who are looking at the screen this whole time, the Media OCD Store, I was leaving that up just so that we can get some advertisement. But, you know, 30 minutes, that's enough. After 35, I start charging. So
Well, thank you.
you're welcome. So yeah, so I mean, I could, because you know, I remember I was there when the anime crash happened, not in any business capacity, obviously, but as a fan when Borders went under, and uh,
Those are some dark days.
the damage that it did to the anime industry and the manga industry. And I almost was kind of thinking to myself, boy, I think Crunchyroll store is almost, in my mind, it should be worse because, again, they took over the #1 anime store online. So, I
Well,
mean, from your perspective, like, which was the more seismic shift?
Well, okay, so that crash, we forget today, but that crash happened because of the broader economic disaster that was happening at the time. You know, that was the Great Recession. That recession was so bad that the whole banking system almost collapsed. Like there were a few weeks there where you were scared to deposit a check because you didn't know if the banks trusted each other to send the money. Like that actually happened for a while. So yeah, these retail giants that were very dependent on malls that were failing left and right, like you know, Musicland, Sam Goody. Of course, they fell apart, and there were years of bad business practices leading up to that, where Musicland was just sitting on just millions and millions of dollars worth of inventory and then returning it. Obviously, that was going to be unsustainable. Obviously, that was going to wipe out half the industry. It was just a really bad idea that people just hadn't fully, like, everyone had just kind of tunnel vision and didn't have really a big picture of what was happening and why. I mean, Central Park Media was priced out of the business simply because, like, some of those titles, what they had been puffed up to be, they would have to be a Hollywood level bestseller in order to break even for what those companies were paying for those titles. Like, things were out of control, and that's why we had that collapse. This is not that. The funny thing about it, actually, to me, is that Crunchyroll made this decision where they're obviously, deprioritizing social or physical media right at the time when physical media is back in a huge way. Like, I always help Discotech out working their booth at Otakon every year. It's just a great way to, interact directly with the fans and, just kind of get to know them and for them to get to know me. It was grueling this year because it was people were flooding our booth nonstop the entire weekend. It was like Black Friday level sales the entire weekend long. And then, we announced the new Discotech pre-orders on MediaOCD.com, and our site went down. There was so much traffic. That one weekend blew away all of our sales records, both for Discotech and for me. So, there is a huge amount of new blood coming into physical media. A lot of the people coming by our booth were in their mid-20s, early 20s. Some people asking if we had players because they didn't have one yet. I tell people, and I've been telling people for the last couple of years, that Blu-ray is starting to have its vinyl moment. And some people were like, okay, yeah, maybe, but they didn't see it. Now you can see clear as day. 4K sales are through the roof. Blu-ray sales are up slightly. DVD's still down, but DVD's old. Right. And also, with DVD, you have a lot of like legacy places stocking them because of old people. For example, every time I release a documentary, I have to put out a DVD of it because, old people and libraries. But, there's a whole lot of great things to be done in the physical media space. And I'm really excited for what we have in store, what our other publisher friends have in store. This one company deciding they don't really want to be a huge part of that space, that's fine. That's on them. There will be an availability problem with the titles that they represent, for now at least. But as long as there is a market for this stuff, and the anime market is incredibly healthy right now, nature will find a way, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Crunchyroll is owned by Sony. I hope they don't make like a boneheaded decision, like get out of the physical media market in a other multi-billion-dollar industry. Nah, they'll never do that.
Oh, which one are you talking to? They're in like 7. Oh, that. Well, one thing that people have to remember about Sony, and I learned this 20 years ago when I was working with them on Big Apple Anime Fest. Sony, the individual divisions of Sony don't really talk to each other that much. There's a whole...
Well, as evidenced by their little vinyl release like 2 days after the announcement.
Well, look, I mean, who's the biggest producer of anime soundtrack vinyl? Milan, which is a division of Sony Music.
Yeah. Really, they're the biggest one. I thought it was Aniplex, but...
No, the vinyl. The vinyl releases.
Oh, the vinyl, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wow. There you go.
So... just because, they're both called Sony doesn't mean that was any sort of coordinated thing or they even knew about it. I personally very much disagree with the dismantling of physical media. But that said, the game part, I could see why an MBA would go, okay, that's a good idea.
Right.
The anime part baffles me, honestly, but that's their decision. But I really don't think it's any sort of coordinated thing from the Sony higher ups.
I see. So, so that weekend, was that what this little post was about? Doors are opening. You are actually doing something here. Mark my words. Was this you feeling a little high off those good sales and everything?
No, that was me feeling a little high off of some meetings that I will not speak about, but you will see
Okay.
the fruits of very soon.
Uh, all right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what those results of those meetings are. It's probably too much to hope that the Sonic the Hedgehog OVA is one of them, but
Yeah,
I,
it is.
I won't start guessing through a process of elimination.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, the problem with the Sonic the Hedgehog OVA is that it was made by a company called General Productions, and they went out of business, and nobody knows who inherited their rights, and if anybody, and in order to license something, somebody has to license it to you, and then they have to contractually pay the director, the writer, the head writer, the producer, and the original creator, in this case, Sega. Sega was on the production committee, but they're not the producer. So Discotech has gone to Sega, is like, we really want this, and Sega's just like, yeah, we didn't make it. We don't know who owns it. That's still a mystery. And unfortunately, with Japanese copyright law, it's kind of unsurmountable.
Right. Yeah. And
That's happened with a few shows, like Dominion Tank Police, same problem. The original producer is a division of Toshiba that basically has been reformed and now just makes industrial videos, and no one from that era knows what we're talking about when we bring it up. So they, unless someone knows where the contracts are and can say, okay, well, these rights are cleared. We need to clear streaming rights so we can abide by this contract, but we need sign off from this person, this person, this person. Like there's this whole legal procedure that has to be done before an anime can be sold. And unless someone's around to know how to do that, or even if the right people can be reached, it just can't happen.
Right. Yeah. No, we talked about that a little bit last time, and it is very illuminating sometimes to find out how these rights disappear sometimes.
It's tough.
Yeah, I'm sure another one of my dream items, the Toei animation Yu-Gi-Oh show. I'm sure that has a different problem. I'm sure everyone knows who owns it, but Konami doesn't want that one out there.
Yeah, that is actually a problem with older versions of shows that have been remade. If there's a new version that they like better, they're not going to approve the reuse of the old version. I think that's a huge mistake.
Right.
But it's not my property.
Yeah, well, especially since I think that version was much better than the more successful version, but it happens. And then good luck trying to get that original anime Mario movie license. I don't even know.
Oh yeah, I'd have to be personal friends with Shigeru Miyamoto,
and even he might not even remember what that is. So, well, I'm glad to hear that. So overall, though, you're confident that the industry is going to survive Crunchyroll shuttering the #1 anime store in America, and that it'll be felt, but it won't be devastating.
Well, I mean, I'm dedicating basically every waking hour of my life that I'm not either eating, sleeping, or at the gym or doing laundry, to
Good to know.
To making sure that we're okay. I'm giving it everything I got. My team is giving it everything we got. I'm not going to deny that it's going to be distressing and a little awkward at first, especially, and there will be like huge gaps in what's available, but we'll fill them eventually. I don't think, as long as there is a market for anime Blu-rays, I think people will make anime Blu-rays. I just think that's something that will not go away for the foreseeable future, because I like everything that I see is the opposite. Everything that I see is that people want them, that they care a lot about them. Are they going to do the numbers that they did in like 2007? No, of course not. But they shouldn't. No, not everyone needed, and to buy 8 separate discs of, whatever forgotten Bandai TV series.
Trouble Chocolate.
Nobody wanted 6 volumes of Generator Gall.
Right. No. Well, back then it was the options were more limited. That's how they made their money. They didn't, for the most part, they didn't have TV deals. We didn't have streaming services. The hobby was considerably more expensive back then. I do cry a little knowing that when I got Marmalade Boy on the Blu-ray from Discotheque, it's like, man, how much did those 4 sets cost me back then? And now it's the fraction of what it used to cost.
Wait. I'm sorry. Marmalade Boy?
Did I mispronounce that?
It's just marmalade.
Marmalade. Oh. Well, I can't cut that out again. It's live.
Oh my god! I'm sorry. I don't mean to make fun, but I just never heard anyone do that before.
So just to let you folks know, the last time I had this guy on, I forgot what I was calling Animego, but I totally mispronounced it, and he almost fell out of his chair laughing. Then too.
Okay. You know what? You're such a good sport about it. I feel comfortable that I can make fun of you on your own show.
Well, when you've grown up with autism and with a stutter, you kind of learn to just laugh at yourself about it. Heck, I'll share another story. People told me that I should be watching The Big Bang Theory because it's like, oh yeah, Sheldon Cooper, he's got autism on that show. He's just like you. And I watched it. Lilo, will you stop being annoying a little? And I watched the show, and I was like, wow, I'm annoying, aren't I?
I mean, also that show sucks balls. Like, I'm sorry, anyone telling you to watch Big Bang Theory is not your friend.
Well, yeah, they are. They're all of our friends have blind spots.
Yeah, fair enough. I was offended. I don't have autism, but I was offended by Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, well, and it lasted who knows how many years. So
I don't get it, but whatever.
Yeah. Although I have to admit, I kind of like Stuart Fails to Save the Universe. I'm kind of enjoying that show, to be honest. But
fair enough.
Yeah. So. But anyway, yeah. I kind of figure like, well, if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at?
Story of my life. I mean, look, I was the most awkward teenager you could imagine. The fact that now of my high school graduating class that I'm like doing things that people would find cool and, have a pretty awesome life here in LA. I think people would do a double take because I was fucking weird, But hey, the weirdos inherit the earth, right?
Yeah, well, the 80s movies were telling you the nerds would have their revenge.
Yeah, well, the 80s movies also tried to convince us that there was a clearer, like, dividing line between nerds and jocks, and now jocks watch Jujutsu Kaisen.
Right. Well, and also the jocks were the people who would, like, talk about the sports statistics and things like that, and they had the nerve to call us the nerds.
The funny thing is, like, it was really such a school-by-school basis because, like, the jocks in my school were actually pretty nice. It was like the Nepo kids that you had to watch out for. Yeah, the kids that got brand new Land Rovers for their 16th birthday, those are the ones that sucked.
Uh, yeah. Well, I know that the principal at my school like made fun of my hobbies and was like, why do you watch Sailor Moon? That show's for girls. Of course, I was homeschooled, so the principal with my dad. So yeah. Anyway,
Okay, well then,
that's obviously a joke.
probably did not help the social aspect of things.
Yeah, that's a joke. That was a joke,
Okay, okay.
obviously. But yeah, yeah. No. Well, again, you're definitely living any anime nerds from the '90s dream, owning your own anime company, getting these obscure titles, and yeah, creating your own store.
It's so weird. I can't. It. I have kind of given up trying to predict what will hit and what won't. Like of our own titles, the ones that have been the most successful, Maddox. Obviously Bubblegum Crisis and Bubblegum Crash, because those are just everyone knows that people love those shows.
Right.
Prime Rose has been doing very well. I did not see that coming.
Interesting.
Maybe it's because it has like a Princess Leia type, character in a bikini on the front.
Yeah, that could help. Yeah.
But then we have, the shows that Alien 9 is doing very well, and I'm so stoked about that. I loved Alien 9.
I did not like that when I was a kid, to be perfectly honest. I have the DVD still. I never got rid of it, but
how young were you? Because that show is literal child trauma, the anime.
I was probably 11.
Yeah, okay, a little too young.
Yeah, admittingly, there have been some shows that when I revisit them with older eyes, it's like, okay, it plays differently. Although that's kind of like movies sometimes. I mean, I remember as a kid being like totally bored of All the President's Men, and now it's like, oh, that's such a great movie.
Well, yeah, there's lots of things that you're just not going to appreciate as a kid just because you don't have the life experience, you don't have the frame of reference to know what they're talking about. I don't think I could show any 11-year-old a David Cronenberg film and expect a positive response.
No.
Maybe be brought up on child abuse charges, but that's a whole nother.
Or remember that Simpsons jokes where the kids sneak into the David Cronenberg movie Naked Lunch, and then they walk out, and I think it was Nelson who says, "Okay, I can think of two things wrong with that title." It's like, yeah, no, ain't that the truth? That's how an 11-year-old would react to that.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be able to show an 11-year-old Jinro either, and Jinro's a masterpiece.
Right. You know what's really surprised me is how G Kids have kind of become like the savior of prestige anime, like getting Angel's Nest and Vampire Hunter D and re-releasing your name. It's like, I love it.
Yeah, well, they do theatrical better than anyone. And they're really good at it. They do really good marketing. And they have the spending power to prove it now, especially now that they're owned by Toho. They can get things that we just can't because they're owned by Toho. But they're doing great work. I know some of the guys over there. They're really great people, and I am excited for a lot of stuff I got to get my copy of Linda. I'm really excited for that one. I have it pre-ordered. That's one of my favorite Japanese live action films.
Okay. Since we're talking about things that didn't make sense when we were younger, I went to see Adolescence of Utena in the movie theaters. It's like, okay, I didn't get it back then. Maybe I'll get it today. I don't think I understand it that much more.
No. I mean, honest, Adolescence of Utena is pure art. It doesn't make literal sense, though. And if you go into it expecting a normal narrative, you're going to be disappointed.
Well, I wasn't expecting a normal narrative. Well, it helped that I'd seen it before. But,
right.
Like that dancing scene where they're dancing on the water with the rose petals. It's like, this is a really beautiful scene. It doesn't make a lot of sense, really. But
no, it's like
beautiful.
It's visuals that you just can't see anywhere else, but also has nothing to do with any discernible reality.
Right. Although, does anything have anything to do with reality in that movie? I mean, it's like I think I'd have an easier time explaining Inception to people.
Well, yeah, because Inception has a normal plot line.
In
It's
comparison to this thing.
well, look, I mean, Inception might be a non-linear plot line, but it's still a pretty normal plot line. License of Utena has nothing to do with reality. It's a mood piece. It's a it works in symbolism. It doesn't work as a literal story at all.
Right. I don't even think it has much to do with the TV show it was based on.
No, I would agree with you. It uses the TV show and its characters as a jumping off point, and that does something completely unexpected with them. It turns the protagonist into a car.
Yep, and I dare I say it, I think I like the result better when Pixar did it. I know
Well, different strokes.
That's a low blow for some people. I'm gonna get so many nasty comments for that one. Like you're
you
not
know, if I had one wish for people on the internet, it's that things can exist that you don't like, but other people do, and it's fine.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, theoretically, someone out there thinks Freddy Got Fingered is funny. I don't. I think that was like one of the most torturous things I've ever seen, but someone thinks it's funny, and God bless them, I'm glad someone does. Because people spent time and money on this thing.
And didn't make it back.
No, they didn't. Well, anyway, since we are going to be wrapping this up in a minute, despite this little setback, how optimistic are you about the future of anime in America as a business, as a hobby, as art?
As a business, extremely optimistic. For me anyway. I don't know about everybody else. I think Americans have never been more open to both new and old anime. They have never been more open to reading subtitles. They have never been more accepting of other cultures' popular stuff. And I think that's incredible and amazing. And it feels like a really good place to be. You don't put that genie back in the box. That doesn't go away. As for the anime content itself, I can't really tell. Japan has so many problems these days, and I do worry about the Hollywoodization of anime and of basically people with the money making very overly safe decisions and us not getting the weird things anymore that anime was known for. But the current output is still pretty. There's still some pretty weird shit coming out, so we're okay for the time being. For the fandom, look, you can always find something to complain about. But we also live in a timeline where in 2026 you can buy Rose of Versailles, you can buy,
which I did.
you can buy Dazaki's Treasure Island, you can buy Blackjack, you can buy fucking Chibi Go Nagai World.
Okay, that one I didn't buy.
You're right. There's always going to be things that you are not able to get. But the stuff that you can get now is stuff that I never thought we'd ever be able to get in this country, ever. And there's going to be an ebb and a flow to everything. That said, the stuff that you love, if you love it, help find an audience, spread the word. That's the way to help. And I find the most angst is to be found in inaction. If you're unhappy with how things are, you can be part of the solution.
Right. Yep. By the way, folks, I'm just going to say anime, out of all the physical media you could be buying, is like the Criterion Collection. It's worth getting into because you never know when it's going to go out of print and you won't see it again for how long. So
my contracts for these things, they last 5 to 7 years. And every time it comes time to renew them, don't know. Maybe they'll just say no. That's happened. and or maybe it just doesn't sell enough right now because people forgot about it, and it's not worth renewing. That's happened a lot. Um,
Well, who'd have thought that
so
Sailor Moon would have been out of print for a decade or so? Like,
well,
was
that had other issues going on there. Like
right.
the other thing is the Japan side of things is so frighteningly complex, and so many people can just say no and just put a dead stop to things. Um, every release is ephemeral. Every release, you might be your last chance to get something, which is, sucks to say, but it's true. Um, and yeah, just if you love it, support it. That's all you can really do at the end of the day.
Yep. By the way, I think the last anime DVD I bought was Monkey Magic from Discotheque. By the way, that was a show I loved when I was a kid, and watching it older, it's like, yeah, there's a reason people say kids are stupid.
Yeah, not everything holds up to adult scrutiny.
Yeah, yeah. Although I do think it's kind of interesting how, because of shifting cultural awareness, they printed his actual name, Son Goku, on the box. So that it's like, well, I'll take it. So anyway, Justin, thank you once again for doing this. In a year or so, maybe another seismic shift will happen. You can come back on. You can give your opinions on something, and I can mispronounce something else that you can get a good laugh at. Whether that's on camera or off camera, can't exactly say for sure.
We'll find something to make fun of.
We'll find something, and next time. Well, next time I'm gonna make sure this dog's somewhere else because she just farted. God, you have. I'm not. I won't lie. She made this live stream more interesting than I had intended it to be. So anyway, folks. First of all, I won't charge for this. If you want to see, Justin's anime and other stuff, go to Meta OCD. You can buy it there. No paywall required. I'd love to hear a comment below if you're listening to this on a place where there's comments, as well as a like and a share. And if you really enjoyed this, let's make it official. Subscribe. We're on all the podcasting platforms of choice: Apple, Deezer, Spotify. Not Google anymore. They don't do podcasts anymore. And as always, flame responsibly. Take care, everyone.